James, my cereal. You can catch me the Diary from Monist. Shout out to the Monist gang. Okay, cool. If you're new here, please hit the sub button. Road to 1,000 subscribers. Okay, so today I'm going to touch on the psychology of Carl Jung. Carl Jung was probably the most influential psychologist of all time, whose ideas and findings and use value is just incalculable. The first thing you learn about Carl Jung is he's trying to understand the human psyche in order for an individual to be able to fully control all components of themselves, because the psyche is the combination of the conscious and the subconscious mind. I've discussed the difference between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind in another video. I'll leave that link in the description below. So Carl Jung's aim was to get the individual to control all components of himself, as a significant portion of who we are, what we like, why we act the way we do is in our subconscious mind, and we often have no access to it due to our lack of awareness, and therefore need to bring programs running in our subconscious mind into our awareness and into our control. In order to come into an authentic, complete state of being, you must integrate your goals with your subconscious mind. And this process is called the individualization process, as Carl Jung would put it. The reason you would want to do that is because there are programs in your subconscious mind that run without your permission and may cause you to self-sabotage. A part of you may know that you need to do something to better your living conditions, or set a goal and start eating healthy, for example. But there are parts of you that will self-sabotage those goals or will go against your conscious command. The problem with not integrating the fragmented parts of yourself to one whole is you develop behavioral problems that hurt your long-term well-being, and if you ignore these problems, they grow to unmanageable proportions. So before I unpack the individualization process, you may want to first think about and take the union notion that the psyche world is as real as the physical world. In the same way, numbers is just an idea or an abstraction, and not something in the physical world. You can't touch the number 1. But the use of those numbers is such a powerful tool that some numerologists can even make an argument that they are more real than the physical world or the foundation of the physical world. So you have to take the notion of the psyche world very serious. So the first step of the individualization process is to put down the persona and social mask you've been given to conform into your specific society. Because we're not uniform robots. They're unique parts of you that you've buried down into the deeper parts of your psyche in order to fall in place to the social norms that you've been taught. An example of this is an extroverted woman born in a culture or religion where women are instructed to be conservative, forcing her to suppress the extroverted side of herself in order to fit into the cultural norm. So the first step you're going to have to do for the individualization process to be complete is to put down your social mask and explore your own psyche, your own conscious and unconscious mind. So you may be wondering, how can I do that? But in order for you to understand how, I need to unpack your psyche. The conscious mind, which is the realm of personal awareness, is where what Jung calls the ego resides. And the ego tells you stories about yourself which is expressed by the persona you give out to the world. However, remember, this persona is not the true individual, as the ego is just a filter or a gatekeeper that has suppressed parts of yourself and emotional baggage into the unconscious mind. However, these programs in the subconscious mind still affect you, even though your conscious mind is unaware of it. Okay, so I briefly mentioned the first two parts of your psyche, the first being the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, which is the second part of your psyche. The third part of the psyche that we need to explore is called the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness is the part of your unconscious mind that contains all memories and impulses inherited throughout history. So there's the personal unconscious mind, which derives from individual experiences, but the collective unconscious mind derives from your ancestors, like the sum total of human history. And this is probably a consequence of generations imitating the previous generations for millions and millions of years, inheriting memories, physical part of the brain structures, and so much more. However, more importantly, different cultures, races, and religions inherit similar symbols, motifs, commonly referred to as archetypes within the collective consciousness. These archetypical structures and symbols are shared multiculturally, even if it was impossible for these different cultures and races to historically ever physically meet or cross paths. They inherited from the collective consciousness. Archetypes represent universal patterns of human life, and these archetypes affect how we experience life. A simple way to understand this is to use Eric Newman's analogy of the physical body to understand archetypes. You see, your physical body is structured by organs largely prior to birth. So does the mind possess psychic organs with its own structures, like archetypes. And just as the physical organs operate without conscious awareness, so do archetypes. And just as adequately as physical organs are needed for a healthy body, so is a healthy mind reliant on proper functioning archetypes. Archetypes are mainly expressed into the conscious awareness through symbols, which should not be confused for a sign. Edward Ettinger writes, "A sign is a token of meaning that stands for a known entity. By this definition, a language is a system of signs, not symbols, because a symbol, on the other hand, is an image or representation which points to something essentially unknown. It's like a mystery. A sign communicates an abstract objective meaning, whereas a symbol conveys a living subjective meaning. However, while there is a presence of subjectivity, they clearly relate to basic universal truths across cultures." Now, symbols are the language of the subconscious mind, and not only do they influence the conscious mind, but they evade the conscious mind's logical reasoning. Carl Jung believed that by becoming aware of these symbols, an individual can expand their consciousness on the human experience. An example of this is the symbol of the phoenix, which is a symbol I try and act out, particularly because it was once given to me through a vision. The phoenix archetype is found in many traditions, in Egypt, in Persian tradition, in Jewish tradition, and Christianity mythologies. The phoenix is a mythological bird that burns into ashes and is reborn. The idea is that the old has to die in order for a transformation to take place and to recreate the new. There's a psychological merit to that, as our ability to learn is in discovering what you're doing wrong, and the literal killing of neurological structures and habits in order for transformation to take place and for you to grow into a new behavior, which has ripple effects on your results, on life, and in general society. As time went on, I learned to think about the phoenix symbol more correctly from Dr. Jordan Peterson, as he states that the phoenix symbol centers around transformation, because you know that you need to do better, because you know you're not the person you can be instinctively. This is a universal element of the human experience worldwide, where you imagine a better version of yourself and you judge yourself against that person. There are biological structures that will release negative hormones if you do not make an effort to improve yourself, to work towards that better you. Ignoring this is like a one-way ticket to feeling stuck, anxiety, and depression. I have found in my life that acting out the archetype of the phoenix to be extremely useful. Okay, anyway, so let's take a step back to the psyche realm. See, the psyche realm consisting of the conscious and unconscious mind. When they interact together, they create the self. The self is who you really are. It's the part of you that always aims for a higher goal. Your aim is to get the ego persona, the mask that you show society, to accurately integrate and represent the self in order to fulfill the process of individualization and live a holistic life. So you need to face your unconscious programs with honesty and courage, because that's the place your ego suppresses all your programs in. And that place within the unconscious mind where the programs are stuffed is referred to as the shadow. So if you ignore what's within the shadow, it will control you without you even knowing and will sneak into your behavior. Okay, so here's an example, right? Using my personal experience. One of my primary guardians while growing up, whenever the guardian would do anything for me, buy me food, give me money, or do anything while I was growing up, they would express how much of a sacrifice, how much of a burden it was to carry out that action for me. See, that program laid itself down to my subconscious mind while growing up, and because of that, I struggled to get help or collaborate with anyone else, because it felt like they weren't assisting me out of their own hearts of heart. Even though people didn't say it or show any sign of burdening or that I was pestering them, because growing up that program was laid onto me, that's how I view the world. But that was an unconscious program. My ego persona, or what I would tell myself, is that I don't need any help because I am a Superman, and therefore I should not accept any help because I'll just be falling into social debt. That was the ego persona and the fake mask that was handed to me of the suppressed program that the Guardian gave me. Now, I've been working on this program for about a year now, and while I'm much better and I've come a long way and I appreciate the value of teamwork and collaboration now, that program still sneaks into my behavior from time to time. Facing that program required honesty and serious bravery to face the ego and tell the ego that is capping by hiding this vulnerability and masking it as a strength. You have to integrate the programs of your shadow into your character and to understand them in order to achieve wholeness. Your shadow doesn't only have negative programs, but suppressed positive programs as well, such as assertiveness, for example. Assertiveness is harshly frowned upon when you're growing up in order to tame you to fit into society. However, that's at the cost of your psychological wholeness. I've had to learn assertiveness into my character the more times I found myself in situations that I needed to negotiate. And I also needed assertiveness in order to learn how to say the answer no, because that was something I would never ever do, and that would affect me. See, these are programs which can be positive that society teaches you to suppress, and therefore is filtered by the ego persona. So you have to examine what society has dressed you up to be and find the individual within yourself and integrate the repressed parts of yourself from your shadow. Now, there is no generalized technique to integrate your shadow. It is more like a unique negotiation with self. You firstly have to be conscious about the shadow place as a place that actually exists, and then pay close attention to your moods, your impulses and your fantasies in order to uncover the suppressed programs within your subconscious mind. The only way to reach psychological wholeness is through individualization, and that's the antidote to illnesses like anxiety, depression, stagnation or feeling lost. However, I think it's important to say before I go, Carl Jung knows that individualism doesn't stop life suffering, but what it does, it gives you the strength to move beyond it and not just be crushed by life. Jung divided suffering in two categories consisting of meaningful suffering and meaningless suffering. Meaningless suffering is the part of the human experience and it's universal. So it's when you find yourself asking, what's the point of life if we're gonna die? Why do we exist? It's flirting with nihilism. Because of this type of suffering, people tend to avoid life, avoid taking risk, avoid failure, avoid pain. This suffering is meaningless and does not have any upside to it. However, meaningful suffering is when we face life head on and stop repressing the suffering but use it to create something. Facing life with a purpose, allowing the full range of emotions to flow through us. This decision is to go through suffering with purpose in order to save us from meaningless suffering. It's the idea that there's only blessings and blessings in disguise in life. It allows us to pay attention to the lessons we're meant to extract from suffering. Now, I don't know why, but my spirit is not completely sold on the idea that everything is suffering. I don't know where exactly my spirit disagrees with this notion, and I'm not going to go into depth with it in this particular video. But I can give it merit in that I've seen people very close to me sacrifice the little they have for a bigger vision and willingly taking on suffering for it. I mean, literally sleeping on the floor and rationing food with a smile because they have attached meaning to their choice to voluntarily sacrifice the now for a bigger dream tomorrow. as if a farmer decided to go into the field today in the scorching sun to plow in hopes for harvest to come out tomorrow. Like, I've seen that, and I've seen the benefits of taking on suffering with meaning and a smile. And I've also seen people who would never take risk or risk the little they have now, and it's just like, and their attitude is like, what's the point? And I've seen how the world is such a cruel place for those people, and because there's no point in trying. And I've seen people who go through meaningless suffering in that nature, and how they're stuck, and they just stay stuck at that level of existence. If this content gave you any value, please like and subscribe. If you do want to support the channel, there is a $2 buy me coffee link in the description. If you can't support, if you're not in a position to donate, please just like the channel and that'll go a long way.